This is a guide for beginner Yasuos and people who want to master him. If you're already a Yasuo main that knows all of his combos and stuff, this video won't be teaching you anything new. But for everyone else, this will be really in-depth. It's a full game, and I'll talk about different combos and just basic Yasuo things that you'll need to know in order to be able to master him. I'll try not to talk during fights, and I'll talk about what happened in the fight afterwards. Here I'm just showing you a stupid mistake on the invade. I walked forward here because I thought our team was gonna fight, but our Callista was trying to be funny and used her passive item on the support, so he couldn't help it all. We end up losing 2 kills. Or, yeah, the enemy team gets 2 kills. I'm just gonna skip to laning phase now. And I have bullet points I'm gonna capture about Yasuo that you'll need to know if you want to master him. But I'll also talk about little micro things I do during the game. Like, I started E here. It's good for early trading. And also you can dodge the big blast from the Heimerdinger turrets. Which, I mean, I guess goes back into trading. You want to... Right there I had my passive shield up, so I decided I could take out that turret and get the 2 CS without losing any HP because I had my shield. And you'll see I'm constantly moving around to regain my shield. And here I dash on him right as I'm about to get my shield. I dash away, get my shield, and he can't get any return damage. He got some damage on before my shield came back though. But that's just little trades. Here Gragas doesn't have E. He just came around to make sure I wasn't killing his laner. But I'll move on to my biggest point for Yasuo. Is he is a fighter, not an assassin. A lot of people think he's an assassin. But his damage will come from auto attacks, and his Q counts as an auto attack even though it is an ability. It acts like an auto attack. So his autos and Qs are all of his damage late game pretty much. He's not a caster, and that can catch a lot of people off guard when they think they can dodge around Yasuo when he's just auto attacking them to death, and you'll see that a little later. So just remember, he's a fighter. He loves skirmishes and kiting around fights rather than going in and killing someone and getting out. Runes are just basic attack speed. I like to go attack speed and AD. Helps with CSing, and I think it helps with trades, but a lot of people just go attack speed with scaling HP and magic resist. You can get rid of scaling HP for armor. You generally just want flat magic resist because you'll be laning against an AP person most likely. Here I go in on him, and he tries to kite around in his turrets, and I just auto attack him to death. Because Yasuo is a fighter, he's not an assassin. He doesn't need to burst you, he'll just auto attack you. I brought exhaust. I generally always bring exhaust on Yasuo. There are other options like ignite and teleport, but I like exhaust better because during the time that you're exhausting the enemy, you can get more damage in than an ignite would be able to just from your auto attacks and Qs. And it also reduces their mobility and damage, so it's especially good against Heimerdinger. So he won't be able to kite me around in his turrets, and it'll reduce all of his turret damage. I'll be able to kill him, get away from his turrets, and live. Masteries, I take Fervor almost always. You can go Grasp top lane if you're going for shorter trades. If you're just trying to dash in, get a trade, and then dash out, Grasp is better because it'll get you some health back on those short trades. But if you're going to dash in and auto attack them to death, Fervor's better because it'll stack up damage more. Some people like Warlord's Bloodlust, which will get you some health back and stuff. It might be good for losing lanes. Like if you're in a losing lane, not for losing a lane. if you think it'll help you more in dueling, like if you think it'll keep you alive longer so you can do more damage, that's not how it helps. It's better just to have fervor because you'll kill them faster and then you won't need that extra healing. But I'll move on to my next main point. YASUO, like every champion, is split into two parts: decision making and microing. Decision making is weighing the risk and reward of every action and knowing your champion's capabilities. Like earlier, I knew that I could dash in and kill the Heimerdinger, and the risk was if Gragas came and helped him, but the reward is getting a kill and winning lane, so I deemed it was worth it, and if Gragas came, I could probably have escaped, so it was definitely worth it. Just little things, even little things here. Farming without getting close enough to take turret damage is so obvious, but little things to the bigger things, everything has risk reward based off your own capabilities, or your champion's capabilities. And then microing is, YASUO has a lot of microing, animation canceling. People think, well, some people get mad that YASUO is just an easy champion to play and he does so much damage and it's not really fair. But they don't understand all of his microing to make him the best, or I mean, to use him to his full potential. Right there, for example, I used a WQ, which animation cancels the Q, or hides the animation anyway. I'll let you watch this here. I'm just trying to dodge everything. I use my Q, I stop Heimerdinger's ult from going off. And I used my flash. I was saving my flash in case they gave up early, but I had to use it from Gragas' body slam. And I used my ult to regain my passive shield. And while they were not able to hit me during my ult, my shield was absorbing the ignite damage, which was really nice. And I was able to get away because of it. And that's just an example of microing. And you need to keep a calm head, especially during ganks and stuff. YASUO can get out of a lot of stuff if you just keep a calm head and you analyze it. Like, I dashed away from Gragas' E and then I dashed away from his Q. If either of those had hit me, I'd be dead. So there are different animation cancels you can do in different high skill moves. I didn't do many high skill moves this game because there weren't really any opportunities, but I'll get into those later. And I'll do a quick ability rundown. His passive is, when his passive is up, you want to go for trades. I mean, always keep in mind the risk and reward, but when your passive is up, the risk reward will be slightly more towards your favor. If your passive isn't up, you always want to be walking around, even if you've pushed under his tower or something. You just want to be walking around to gain your passive up, even if it's just in circles. Your Q and your E, neither of them are reduced by cooldown reduction. So keep that in mind. Your E is only reduced by leveling it up, both the actual cooldown and the internal cooldown. And the Q is reduced by attack speed. There I ended up dying because I was not aware of the Gragas coming around. You always got to keep in map awareness. You got to keep in your capabilities. I wasn't capable of 1v2ing them, so I had to weigh the risk reward of going for that trade on Heimerdinger, and it was not worth the risk. And there'll be things like this. You'll never master a champion so completely that you'll always get it down perfectly every time. But the more you work on it, the better chance that you'll come out on top in these situations. So the Q cooldown, it can be reduced to 1.33 seconds, and that's reduced by attack speed. Phantom Dancer itself won't get you there unless you have a lot of attack speed in your runes. So I personally like to go Berserker Greaves If I need Mercury Treads or Ninja Tabi, then I might get a Blade of the Rune King third item, which will give me the bonus attack speed I need to get to the max cooldown on my Q. Having max cooldown on your Q is important to the way I play Yasuo, because it opens you up to new combos, and it also lets you can auto twice, and then you can Q and cancel your auto animation and still have your auto damage go off, and you get that bonus Q damage. And the more often you can do that in a fight, keeping in mind Yasuo is a fighter, not an assassin, the more damage you can get off total. There, I thought about trying to 1v2 them, but I just weighed that it wasn't worth the risk. So I just leave, maybe give up a bit of farm, and then go back to lane. Your W obviously blocks all projectiles from the enemy team, but it also cancels your Q animation. So sometimes you'll see in this game, I'll go... there Diana just had a nice gank. She used her E to knock him up, and I ulted, just a basic kill. I exhausted to make sure Diana wouldn't die. I probably didn't need to. But your W will animation cancel your Q. You can W and then Q right after you press W, and it'll, especially if you have a tornado up, it'll hide the Q animation and it'll just shoot out the tornado.
Blue team double kill.
It's really good against enemy laners that have projectiles, so you can block the projectile and then shoot out your tornado, and they won't expect it because they think you're just trying to dodge their attack, not actually trying to counterattack too. I'd say that's a medium skill move. There are higher skill moves, but it takes a few tries to get it down. Your E damage will stack, so you want to dash at least twice through minions before you dash onto a champion to trade. In the early game at least. In the later game, your E damage kind of falls off and your damage comes from your autos and your Qs. But in the early game, you want to stack your E and then go on to a champion. And you also want to max your E first, because the cooldown of your E goes from 0.5 seconds to 0.1 second, which is really nice. And you don't get much from maxing your other abilities. Q just gives you like 20 extra damage, so it's pretty much not worth anything. Your E damage when you max it goes up, and it goes up exponentially because you will be able to, well, I guess it goes up multiplicatively because you'll also be able to stack the damage that you get from leveling it up. But another important thing is the internal cooldown on your E goes down the more you level it up. So you'll be able to dash onto a champion twice in the same fight if it's maxed, which is really nice. So you can go in, trade, disengage, and then go in when they're not expecting it, keep your E damage stacks up, and kill them. And then the R is pretty basic. You can only use it on a champion that's knocked up in the air. So it works really well with Wukong and Malphite ultimates. Diana's E is really nice. Diana there went kind of deep, and I knew we weren't going to get anything, so I just stayed back. It wasn't worth the risk. And here I'm just trying to dodge stuff. Baited out the Heimerdinger ult. And it's unfortunate that Gragas came and Diana was too far up. Diana ends up dying here. I thought Gragas was going to throw his Q a little further back, so I tried to step in front of it and fight him. I miscalculated. He didn't throw it further back, so I had to waste my flash. So that was a mistake on my part. But that's fine. I survived. That's what the flash is for.
Red team's turret has been destroyed.
And so, R can only be used on knocked up champs, but it'll also reset your passive, so you can get your shield damage or your shield's health It'll block that twice in a fight if you ult. But it also cancels your Q stack. So if you have a tornado, you want to use that before you ult, because after you ult, it'll just get rid of your tornado and you won't be able to use it. It'll set you back to 0 Q stacks. So keep that in mind. Here's another little fight breaking out. I get a double knockup, so I ult on the Jinx. We're able to pretty much insta-kill her. Here I try to go on the Heimerdinger, but I get greedy. I think I autoed the tower twice, and then I just canceled an auto on Heimerdinger there by accident because I tried to use my Q to snipe the Gragas, and I ended up not getting either of them. So that was an example of me being greedy, and I didn't need to risk that. I could have just gotten the kill on Heimerdinger by dashing on him and using my Q, but I got greedy, and I paid for it. Now I'll talk about the item builds. You almost always start Doran's Blade on YASUO. There are some champions, Kayle, Kennen, Annie, that Doran's Shield might be better just because it'll block their single target damage. And that's really nice. But generally Doran's Blade, sometimes against really hard matchups, specifically in the top lane, Irelia, Renekton, and Darius, you'll want to go cloth armor plus 4 potions, because you will outscale them if you're even in farm. You just want to be able to farm up through the laning phase without dying to them. They will get stronger than you in the mid game if you die to them, so you just want to outscale them. And then your core items, your first item you want to either get a Phantom Dancer or a Static Shiv. And then I generally go Phantom Dancer. It's better for dueling. Gives more attack speed, which reduces the Q cooldown even more. And if you go Phantom Dancer into Berserker Greaves, you get the max Q cooldown, and I don't need to buy any other attack speed item or go without having the max Q cooldown. And the second item, you'll either want Infinity Edge or Triforce. I always go Infinity Edge. I'm not a big Triforce fan, but I know a lot of people like Triforce, so I'll just mention that. And then your boots, I go attack speed boots just so I can get the max Q cooldown without buying another attack speed item. But sometimes Mercury Tread and Jitabai are both really good. Sometimes I'll go with those if I really need to, and then I'll, instead of a Bloodthirster third item, I'll get a Blade of the Ruined King, which will give me the max attack speed I need. But third item, I almost always go Bloodthirster. I just love it. But you can go for, there's 3 different options, whether you want Sustain, Anti-Burst, or Heavy Resist, just going into tank. Sustain would be like Bloodthirster, or Blade of the Ruined King, or Death's Dance, or something like that. I almost always go Bloodthirster. You can get Anti-Burst if you need that. Sometimes I do that if I'm against a burst champion. So that would either be Hex Drinker into Maw of Malmortius if you're against someone like an Annie, because Yasuo is weak to burst. Or you can get any of the lifeline things, so Steric's Gauge as well would go into anti-burst. Or you could just go into tankier build, because you have your core damage. You won't be lacking in damage. You won't be able to like one-shot people, but if you just go into a tankier build, it might help against certain teams that are better at skirmishing and dueling and fighting, team fighting. So you could go Banshee's Veil, Spear Visage, Randuin's, Deadman's, things like that. They're all fine. Guardian Angel, I don't think I would get third item, but it's still a good item on Yasuo, because you can go in deep and then have your team come and back you up. Or you could go in on a risky ult and not worry about dying and being out of the fight. So that's pretty much the items that you'll be getting. Yasuo's weaknesses, he's really weak to hard CC. Elzahar is a tough lane for him. Anything that can lock him down and then have people kill him while he can't react to it is really tough for him. Burst is also tough for him if he dies before he can get, like Annie, if you get stunned and then you get one shot, there's really nothing you can do about it if he just flashes and kills you. So you might need to buy a Hex Drinker if they have a Fed Annie or something like that. So RTC, Burst, and super tanks are hard for him to deal with if he doesn't have any lifesteal. Like if there's a Mundo on the other team, that's hard for him to deal with. I'll watch this fight here. Now keep in mind Yasuo is a fighter, not an assassin, so I'm trying to kite around the edges of the fight while Heimerdinger's ult is going, and deal damage to the outside people. And now Heimerdinger's ult is gone and they're low, so I see my chance to go in. And I end up getting a quadra kill there. You can Q flash, but I wanted to make sure my angles were right, so I didn't have to point my Q in one direction and then move my mouse to flash and mess up my angles. So I just decided to flash and then Q, so I'd make sure I get both of them knocked up. So tanks, if you have no lifesteal, are really hard for Yasuo. If you have lifesteal, you can basically just stand there and auto attack them though. So that's nice. And then the last one that's kind of difficult for Yasuo would be a dedicated duelist like Fiora. People that specialize in dueling, and that might be split pushers or something. Yasuo has to play really well to outplay them or to kite around them. So they're difficult for him, but the more you play Yasuo, the better you'll get at fighting them. And then I'll get into his combos here. So just a really basic one is when someone's knocked up in the air, like if you knock someone up in the air with your EQ combo, which is the spinning knock-up, you want to auto-attack them before you ult them. It just gives in bonus damage. If your ult's going to kill them, you don't need to bother, but then you might not even want to ult in the first place. So just keep in mind that you want to auto-attack while they're in the air, because you can get an auto in and then ult them. It's just extra DPS. You can Q after your ult, so right as your ult is coming down, you can Q them before they can move. You'll see that a little later. And you want to hit as many champs as you can with that Q while they still can't move. I talked about Q flash. You can Q flash. Generally you just want to do that if it's like a single target or if they're all grouped up, because it's hard to get your angles right if you're trying to hit more than one person. Here I'm keeping an eye on Jinx over the pit, and she was trying to fight the Nautilus and not watching over the pit, so I was able to knock her up and then ult over the wall and kill her. So just be careful with if you're trying to Q flash. You'll have to, if you're trying to hit multiple people that aren't lined up, you're going to have to aim your Q in one direction and then aim your flash in a different direction to make sure they're still lined up. I already talked about the WQ animation cancel. That's where you throw your wind wall and then you instantly use Q after that. And they won't be able to see the Q, or they won't be able to see the whirlwind until right before it hits them. It's really hard to dodge that. Here I know if I go in, I'm going to die under the turrets, especially since they have multiple people. So I'm kiting around the fight like a good fighter. There I got the triple kill because of the Q after I ult. So I ulted the two of them, and then right before they could even move, I used my Q, and that killed Tryndamere. And then I was able to dash through Heimerdinger, because I hit my Q on both of them. I was able to dash through Heimerdinger, and that got me the kill on him. So I insta-killed both of them. And then Gragas's E couldn't quite reach me, which was fortunate for me. And I dashed through him, and he missed his auto attack W. So I got kind of lucky there, but I also played it well, I think.
Red team's turret has been
So you just need to keep in mind, keep a cool head, and keep microing things. Another more advanced technique or combo would be you get your tornado up, and then you can EQ onto a minion and then flash before your spin goes off, and it will knock up everyone around your spin. So it's basically the same as Q flashing, but your EQ flashing, it'll knock up people in a circle rather than in a line. It's really nice for diving people when you're both low health. You can EQ flash onto them, auto them when they're in the air, alt them, and then dash through them. Because you didn't dash in onto them to knock them up, you dash through a minion and then flashed. So it's just a nice combo to get extra DPS. Another thing just to keep in mind is you can dash through certain monsters to get over walls. Your W, your wind wall, will give you vision over a wall. So you can dash through things if you W over the wall and you don't have a ward. And then you can dash through it. If you're really good, you can go through the raptor wall and then dash through the raptor on the other side of the wall to gap close really quickly. I'm not quite that good. Here I was trying to predict his E, but he ended up flashing. I'm kiting around while he's using his ult, and I tried to snipe him, but there's no point chasing him down. It's just not worth it. So I'm gonna keep pushing. That's pretty much the basics, medium, and advanced techniques. The more you practice these things, the better you'll be, obviously. Yeah, and the game's pretty much over at this point. YASUO scales so well that if you don't die or feed early and you are able to farm up, you can scale super well and pretty much kill everyone.